Freedom Caucus, Chris Miller. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you being flexible with the minor schedule changes that we had today. We would have loved to have been in Chicago this morning, but it just didn't work out. My name is Chris Miller, and I'm the chairman of the Illinois Freedom Caucus and also the state representative in the 101st District. Today, we're here just after numerous tragedies that have taken place over the Labor Day weekend in Chicago. 52 shot, 7 dead. We're here to talk about crime. We're here to talk about Chicago. And we're here to talk about the federal government stepping in and cleaning up this mess. Brandon Johnson, J.B. Pritzker, and the liberal media and other pro-crime advocates have tried to make this conversation about everything but the truth. The truth is pretty doggone simple. People aren't safe, and apparently the Democrats are totally fine with that. Thankfully, President Trump and the Republican leadership won't sit by and let people get away with murder, with robbery, with drug trafficking, with sex trafficking, the assault on people, carjacking, and the list goes on and on and on. If we want a picture of what Chicago could look like and Illinois could look like in just a short time, we don't need to look much farther than what's happened in Washington, D.C. the last 2 weeks. Just for some facts here, that is things that have actually taken place in real time. Over 1,000 arrests, over 150 illegal firearms have been seized. Multiple gang members and violent offenders have been arrested for assault. Violent crime is down 40%. Carjackings are down a whopping 80%. Burglary is down 20%, and arrests are up 24%. My colleagues later this morning will discuss how these statistics compare to Illinois. But the real question is, why doesn't Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker want the federal government to step in and make their communities safe again? This defies any common sense or common logic when it comes to this. You know, if they told me the Easter Bunny could come in and fix this, I'd say, come on down and let's get this done. But the same things that worked in Washington, D.C. will work in Chicago. You know, the problem is J.B. Pritzker has got the worst case of Trump derangement syndrome that I have ever seen. And the only thing that can really fix this is an ICRR. It's time for them to put their egos aside and lay aside their little petty politics and roll up their sleeves and get this problem fixed. I know that we welcome President Trump to deploy federal law enforcement assistance to Illinois and clean up this crime disaster that the Democrats have created. It's time to make Illinois safe again, and it's time to make crime illegal again. And with that, I would like to mention that if we want to make small changes, you change the way you do things. And if you want to make big changes, you have to change the way you think about this whole problem we have, because there are solutions. We just need to roll up our sleeves and get it done. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to my colleague, Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. State Representative Martin McLaughlin, 52nd District. Glad to be here today, but unfortunately under these circumstances. We just came out of one of the deadliest Labor Day weekends on record, and the national news media has paid attention to it, as well as the local news media. I am a state representative that is in Cook County, Lake County, McHenry, and Kane County. And just for the record, 12 years ago, before I was in statewide public office, I have a very good friend that lives on the South Side I went to high school with, and we were discussing on Facebook why Barack Obama wasn't moving forward with the idea at that time to place federal troops on every street corner in neighborhoods in the city where there was high crime. So to me, I frankly could care less whether it's Donald Trump or Barack Obama in the White House. This is an idea that's beyond time. I have heard the word threat from the media. It's a threat coming from Washington, a threat. I'm trying to understand why an American in uniform standing on a street corner trying to protect other Americans is a threat to anyone. I think it is a threat to those that have failed. And the worst thing that they're worried about is it'll have an immediate success and it'll be a mark against their poor efforts into public safety. I've also heard, and I was interviewed last week, that crime has come down. Well, that's a bit like saying my temperature's gone from 106 to 105. It's still fatal, and it still harms those that are living in these under-resourced neighborhoods. I hear the word privilege a lot, and I'd like to say this because I believe it's true, and I believed it my entire life. Safety is a right. This is not a privilege. When a mother sends her child down to the grocery store, she expects him to come back with a gallon of milk where I live. And instead in the city, far too often, they come back in an ambulance or worse. This is just the facts of people living in the city. I have very good friends that have relatives that have been killed, that have cousins, that have children and grandchildren over generations. I can't believe that we're talking about why it is threatening to increase public safety in these communities. I was just in Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago with my daughter, and we were walking around, and I've got a business in D.C. I'm there often. It was unbelievable, the amount of peace and safety, all because an American citizen in a uniform was standing peaceably on a corner, keeping law and order. So for me, as a state representative, yeah, I'm going to call out those that believe this is a threat. It is a threat to their improper and poor public safety record. And if you ask a mom in a neighborhood or a dad or a child that's just trying to go to school, would they prefer to have an American standing on a street corner protecting other Americans? I think the answer is evident. We had 8 deaths this weekend and hundreds of shootings. And if this was happening in the Middle East, it would be all over the front pages. But it has been accepted, unfortunately, by far too many people in Illinois. Myself, I again, 12 years ago, called this out. I'll call it out again today. We need to make substantive change and to put Americans on American street corners so that mothers can send their kids to the grocery store and they can come home with a gallon of milk unscathed. So, to me, it is a public safety issue that can be addressed. It has been addressed successfully in DC. Let's bring it to Illinois. And the true threat is to the politicians that have failed. The mothers and the families are calling for it. So with that, I'll hand it off to Zoe. But thank you for being here today.
Hello. Hello, Miss. Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. I'm Zoe Lee, the founder of Chicago Flips Red, and Danielle Carter, the vice president and founder of Chicago Flips Red as well. Thank you for having us. As you see, it was 54 people that were shot, 8 people died. And one of the things that really bothers me is that it was 6 women that were shot and killed. One was ambushed by 5 gunmen, 1 woman. Another one were just fights, catty fights, having guns, shooting each other. And I watched our leaders, in the Democratic leaders here, protest Donald Trump for being a dictator yesterday on their free paid Labor Day, the day that we're paying for them to go down there to really incite a riot and try to say everything that Donald Trump is doing is what they are doing. Like, they are trying to make this a socialist city. And they are trying to regulate this city like we are a communist country, and we're not. There's people who fled from communist countries to America in fear of what we're dealing with now. And it is frightening to watch this in 2025. It's frightening to watch our leaders that we have no choice but to pay attention to, because they are running this city, lie to us, lie to the media, lie to the families, lie about statistics, try to say that our commander in chief is a racist and a dictator, when all he's trying to do is make America safe again, because the previous administration opened up the border and 22 million illegal aliens are in this country, and over 70,000 of them are in our communities. So on top of the crime that we're already dealing with, the poverty crimes that the Democratic Party has made in our communities, we're dealing with illegal alien criminals, we're dealing with the cartel, we're dealing with sex trafficking, drug trafficking, we're dealing with human trafficking, and we need help. We need the federal government to intervene. I've been saying this for 2 years. Danielle has been saying this, and other Republican leaders have been saying this, and it is right. I mean, I don't understand, why are we going back and forth about something that was needed years ago? The first term he was trying to do it, and people ignored President Trump. Everything that he was trying to do the first term, he needed to do, because now we're flooded. We're flooded. And let it go to Danielle.
No, yes. And this morning alone, we just had a shooting on the Eisenhower Expressway. So people are not even safe going to work. They want us to believe that crime is down. But when you look at last Labor Day weekend, we had 24 shootings. Fast forward to this Labor Day weekend, we had 54 shootings and 8 people died. And so we know crime is not down. And we had to watch our so-called leaders that's supposed to represent the Chicago citizens have a protest to protect illegal aliens.
No American flag.
And they, no American flag. They were flying foreign flags down there and Mexican flags. We had to watch that. And they, not only that, they were protesting that Donald Trump don't come in and send us the help that we need. We had, instead of families, American citizens, instead of them celebrating Labor Day, they're now having to prepare for a funeral. And we are calling right now for their immediate resignation, because they have failed their oath of duty to protect the citizens, the American citizens, the Chicago citizens, the Illinoisans. And we are calling for President Trump to come in and also give us a forensic audit on all these departments.
Crime prevention
Money, Erica, because we know this, with all this crime that's going on, we know the money is not being spent towards the crime prevention, we are also down 2,000 officers. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say, and thank you for having us.
Representative Chesney.
Hello, I'm State Senator Andrew Chesney. I represent the 45th Senate District, which is all a part of 7 counties in Northwest Illinois. I want to begin by echoing what has already been said here today. President Donald Trump is right. Federal law enforcement resources are needed to restore public safety in American cities, and nowhere is that more true than in Chicago. The numbers tell the story. Last year alone, Chicago had over 600 homicides and nearly 3,000 people shot. This year, nearly 300 people have been victims of homicide, and that does not include over the Labor Day weekend. Carjackings, robberies, and assaults are out of control. Families are living in fear, and businesses are closing their doors and fleeing downtown. Now compare that to Washington, D.C. After the National Guard was deployed, crime went down, homicides dropped, carjackings fell by nearly half. And the message is clear. When leadership gets serious about crime and backs up law enforcement, criminals think twice. Sadly, Illinois is going in the opposite direction. Governor Pritzker and the Democrats pushed through the Safety Act, eliminating cash bail and weakening our justice system. Judges are now forced to release dangerous criminals within hours. Police departments are often demoralized, knowing that their hard work is undone the moment a criminal is released. And let's not also forget about the Trust Act that prohibits local law enforcement from communicating with federal authorities. Mayor Brandon Johnson, Governor Pritzker, and the Illinois Democrats have created a pro-crime, a pro-criminal environment. They've abandoned the victims, abandoned the police, and abandoned the people of Chicago, and many of the people in our districts as well. Just think about it for a minute, what these Democrats really stand for. They're the ones who have allowed illegal immigrant criminals into our communities. They're the ones that want to release people from jail over and over again. They're the ones that restrict Second Amendment rights, but won't keep people who attacked innocent civilians behind bars. It's the Democrats who hate law and order. President Trump, the Illinois Freedom Caucus, Republicans understand that law and order is the pillar of the free world. Without safe streets, there is no prosperity, there is no opportunity, and there is no justice. That is why I support the idea to bring in federal resources to the city of Chicago and stand firmly behind law enforcement. While the Democrats have called for the defunding of police, we are going to, as Republicans, defend them. It is time we give them some backup. It is time for Illinois Democrats to admit their experiment has failed. It is time for them to stop coddling criminals and start protecting Illinois families. It is time for Governor Pritzker to lead the state rather than chase the national spotlight and advance his own political ambitions. And if he won't do it, if they won't do it, then we will with President Trump's help and leadership. With the support of the majority of the citizens of Illinois, we will work very hard to make both Chicago streets and all streets in the state of Illinois safe again. We will now open it up to questions.
I got a question that was just sent to me via email for the members in the chat. Why do you think it is exactly that J.B. Pritzker is so hell-bent on keeping Trump out of Chicago?
Well, I'll take the first crack at it, and my colleagues can jump in. I think his greatest concern is that it's going to work. You know, we saw the popularity when it was implemented in Washington, D.C., and now the mayor of D.C. is applauding these efforts. And so I think what Governor Pritzker is greatest concern, and Mayor Johnson as well, is that it will actually work. And the only people that think it is controversial to keep people in Illinois safe are the Democrat Party, right? I mean, they believe it's acceptable to go from an unacceptable level of crime to an unacceptable level of crime and call that a win. They're the only group that does that. And so what we're saying is that the level of crime that people are experiencing in Chicago that makes its way into our communities and our districts as well is unacceptable. And they should be welcoming President Trump or any president that wants to advance the the safety initiatives to protect every citizen of Illinois. And it's only controversial because it's gonna work when he does it. And Governor Pritzker is trying to show contrast because he isn't interested in running the state of Illinois. He's interested in running for president.
I think those are excellent points that you make there, Senator Chesney. And, you know, we got to understand that Governor Pritzker has a huge ego, and he's not much more than a petty tin pot tyrant, because we watched the way he's governed. He is the king of denial. You know, he thinks that if he denies something, it's not true. But there's a solution for every problem. But the first thing you have to do in order to fix the problem is to admit that you have a problem. You know, J.B. Pritzker and his policies and the Democrat policies has absolutely made life miserable for all the citizens that live here in Illinois, and crime is the catalyst. One of his primary duty is to keep us safe. And he has allowed a literal invasion of the state of Illinois. And I can't wait till President Trump comes here and cleans this mess up and shows the citizens of Illinois what kind of guy this really is. He doesn't care about you. I guarantee you that Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker don't give two hoots about your safety and security. Otherwise, this whole thing would look different. He is a generational trust fund baby. He's never had to be concerned about his safety and security. He's surrounded with a security detail his whole life, most likely, and especially now. And he's insulated from any kind of fear, any kind of reprisal, any kind of threat. He is totally insulated from, and he has no concept of what it's like to really live on the streets of Chicago or live here in any city, to be fearful about your well-being on a daily basis.
Right. We have another question from Mike. Are you concerned about the federal judge's decision regarding the deployments to Los Angeles and the situation that took place out there?
I'll jump on this one, Colin. Which federal judge, which branch? I mean, let's be really direct here. There are so many different branches as it relates to federal judges. A federal judge was at the Ninth Circuit federal judge. Guys, the Supreme Court's going to make the decision on all of this because our benches have been politicized. I think that's pretty well known. Mm-hmm. So I don't put any trust, frankly, into the federal bench until it gets to the Supreme Court. Some of these crazy decisions on guns and other things that have just been found at the Supreme Court over the years, even prior to Trump, to be found unconstitutional. We have too much activism on the bench, and the bench is not following the law. So, yeah, I believe that there'll be an emergency hearing, and it'll go to the Supreme Court, and it'll be found or overturned from the federal bench out, I believe, in California, which again happens quite often prior to Donald Trump and after Donald Trump. So yeah, I love when the media jumps in and says a judge said this. Well, they've been overstepping their authority for quite some time, and they've had multiple losses, most of the judges here in the last year, based on them politicizing their position. So I'll put my faith in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I also agree with that. I currently have 4 federal court cases over here at the federal building, and I can't get any answer. And we have all of the evidence and all the constitutional violations. So this really has to do with them not respecting President Trump being the commander-in-chief. This man has been fighting for over 200 days with Democrats. They haven't even passed, I don't even think they've passed any laws. I don't think they've talked about legislation. They're not even doing bipartisan. When it comes to the Republicans, all it is talking about how this man is trying to ruin America when all he's doing is following the very the very U.S. Constitution that is for this, for America, for this soil. He's the only one going by the U.S. Constitution, while the Democrats and these federal judges are going against the U.S. Constitution, the very same U.S. Constitution that they took an oath to. These people took an oath to this U.S. Constitution. Pritzker did. What's the other man named? Brandon Johnson did. And they are violating it every day, all day. I mean, it doesn't really matter what the federal courts say at this point, because the Supreme Court is going to rule in the favor of the commander-in-chief for following the U.S. Constitution and trying to make America safe again, because we have over 22 million illegal aliens in our country.
Following up on that question from AM 560, there's been a lot of media regarding the troops on the ground in D.C. working with law enforcement. Do you feel that it'll be an issue in Chicago as far as dealing with the troops versus the benefits, fear of being a victim of crime? What do you feel as residents of Chicago? What's more fearful, having support from the federal government or being victimized by crime?
Oh, definitely victimized by crime. We're in a war zone. So having more police on our streets, that will be a deterrence from the crime. If you have a National Guard right there, standing right there, you're not just going to pull out a gun and shoot. You're not just going to carjack someone with the National Guard standing right there. So I trust having more police officers or National Guard officers in our community, way more than I trust the ones who have the guns right now, unlawful guns, that's shooting up crowds and doing massive shooting. So yes, I definitely trust President Trump. I trust what he sees, what he thinks is best, because we see what he did in Washington, D.C., and we see it's working. So we do need more officers on the streets.
I want to add to that. So in DC, when I was there, what they ended up using the federal.
All right, thank you all. Oh, Marty, do you have an answer? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, to Zoe's point, being in DC and seeing it firsthand, the federal troops were an adjunct to local law enforcement, which freed them up to get into the neighborhoods. And the federal troops were in many of the protecting many of the the mall, the statues. So it really freed up the police to do what they're best at, which is getting into the neighborhoods. And I think that's an example of what we can see here in Chicago. And hopefully our leaders will get out of the way and let us even attempt to improve the safety in these neighborhoods, because I think it's going to be immediate and it's going to resonate with the Austin, South Shore, all these neighborhoods that have just been besieged. So let's get it going. Let's get it done.
All right. Thank you all for joining us this morning. We appreciate the media being here and those that have joined us. Feel free to email for any follow-ups, and